Morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar organized by Adra-e, which is a coordination and support action founded by the European Commission. I'm Viviane Habert, and I'm the project manager of this project. So I will guide you through the objectives of today. So global challenges today needs to be faced with AI, data, and robotics as key technologies. The European Union has launched several initiatives in order to favor trustworthy, safe, and robust ADR, which are aligned with EU values and regulations. These initiatives are the ADR Partnership, Adra, and its funding organizations, BDVA, ELLIS, EurAI, and EuRobotics. But there are also two recently founded CSAs, which are AI4Europe and Adra-e. The webinar will zoom in on the ADR ecosystem. The idea is to help clarifying the roles and objectives of these initiatives and explaining how we can engage with a wide range of stakeholders in order to cover the entire value chain of the ADR for the benefit of the European Union. So today, the agenda is composed of two slots, one slot of presentations and another one we will open the floor to have a discussion with all of you. So the moderator is Clemens Wasner, CEO of EnliteAI and an Adra director. We will start after this brief presentation with Adra-e, presentation made by Marc Schoenauer, which is a research director at Inria. We will then have a presentation by Barry O'Sullivan, which is a full professor of the University College of Cork, and which is a coordinator of AI4Europe. We will then have Rich Walker, chair of the board, which will give us a presentation and guide us through the ADRA Association, which was recently created. And to conclude this slot, we will have Sam Gulec and David Ballester, which are project officers of the European Commission, to give us some insights and their views on the links between the ADR Partnership, Adra-e, and AI4Europe. And then we have our discussion with you. We look forward to have this interesting conversation and exchange of views. So now I leave the floor to Clemens.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Viviane. You forgot one very important thing to mention. Viviane is also the project manager of this CSA, so she will be the public face for quite some activities. Yeah, with regard to the time and without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Marc Schoenauer, who will provide you an overview what is the scope of the CSA from a content perspective and provide you a little bit of a deep dive in the next 15 minutes.
Thank you, Clemens. I first try to share my screen. Yes, it does work. Okay, you will see my screen, otherwise you have to stop me.
Yes, works perfectly.
Good. So yes, as said by Viviane and Clemens, my task now is to introduce you to the general context of the CSA, Adra-e CSA. I have the honor to be the scientific coordinator of this CSA. This CSA takes place in a general context that we try to summarize on this slide. We have the AI data robotic community, which has been there for quite some time already and is standing there, but maybe not working always in coordination and synchronization. And there was this ADR partnership that was launched by the partnership between the European Commission and the ADRA Association that will be introduced in more details later. And the goal of the Adra-e support action is to support the partnership and indirectly supporting both the ADRA Association and the European Union to make this partnership a success. What are the objectives of this partnership? Well, they can be summarized in 3 words: sovereignty, leadership, and competitive position. Sovereignty about the AI data and robotics technologies that we need to preserve in Europe, the leadership of Europe about this technology regarding not only the economic but also the environmental impacts of these technologies, and try to maintain leadership worldwide, that is the main competitors being the USA and China at the moment. And of course, this goes with reinforcing the competitive position of Europe and European industry in these ADR technologies. So Adra-e was set up in very close collaboration with Adra, the private part of the partnership. And so it really adheres to its strategy to achieve the previously mentioned objectives. The first one is related to implementation and update of the SRIDA. SRIDA is a strategic research, innovation, and deployment agenda. The SRIDA was the starting point of all this and the partnership in particular. The SRIDA was commended to both the BDVA Association and the EuRobotics Association to write this roadmap of deployment of ADR. Later in the game, enter the AI Association that have been already listed by Viviane, Claire, ELLIS, and EurAI. And this resulted in the SRIDA, but this was, the whole process took quite some time and ended up more than 2 years ago. And so it, of course, need help to be implemented. It also need help to be updated because things are going very fast in ADR technologies. But this cannot be achieved without having a really inclusive, sustainable, multi-layered, coherent ecosystem in ADR in Europe. And as already said, and I will come back on this, at the moment it's more a collection of communities rather than one really inclusive single community. And this is a mandatory condition if you want to reach the overall goal of all these movements, these actions, which is to increase the trust and adoption of these technologies in European industry and society. And so the third, let's say, main high-level goal of Adra-e is to raise awareness about private investment in industry for the partnership, but also awareness of Adra and gathering new members for Adra. It can only be successful if it represents actually a large part of the ecosystem. So how was the Adra-e set up? Well, there's a consortium. Well, first it started in July 1st, a few days ago, for 3 years. And it's been, the consortium has been made by trying to meet the very delicate equilibrium between both topics, AI, data, and robotics, and the balance between academia and industry. And so the partners that you can see the logos here, I will not list them all. The partners try to represent this equilibrium, this equilibria, because we need equilibrium. They're all involved in Adra and or in the associations, the founding association of Adra, and in diverse partnership, diverse actions, institutions that have been listed by Viviane at the introduction. So the objective more precisely, the objective can be listed here in 6 main objectives. As said, the first one is to support the implementation and update of the SRIDA, and this goes with connecting the communities. The second one is to also be aware of what exists. I mean, the ADR landscape is there. There are existing infrastructure, existing actions already linked or not to the partnership, and it's important to be aware of what's there. And then to deliver some services that will allow to build a connection between the existing initiatives. Third objective is to raise awareness about ADR technology in the whole European society. That goes from citizens to businesses, public administrators, and maybe more importantly, educators for the future of the ecosystem and the technologies. But beyond awareness, we need also to favor adoption of these technologies. And this is the fourth objective of Adra-e. So industries or businesses that are aware, they need also to be given the tools to adopt the technology, the knowledge and the tools. Important also is the development of standards. As said, one of the objectives of the partnership is to maintain the sovereignty of Europe, and this goes with the development of standards regulation, as Europe has already shown the way, for instance, with the GDPR. And last but not least, we want to maintain the sustainability of what will be set up, sustainability beyond the 3 years of Adra-e existence. And so this goes with really pushing forward the partnership and Adra Association and the partnership. Now, more precisely, the CSA is made of so as many works packages as our objectives in some sense. So the first works package is really working on connecting communities, and we'll see next slide how this will be done by organizing some events, cross-community events, and also providing guidelines, or let's say recommendations, sorry, to the not only implementation but the update of the SRIDA by gathering these recommendations from the existing events that will be organized. The second work package is concerned with the mapping, and it also deals with the awareness objective, and it will set up some awareness mechanism through also organizing some cross-community events, but also involving initiatives that might not be linked yet to the partnership and to existing ecosystem. Now, the third work package is will set up the awareness center, more globally addressing the awareness objective, and will really, in particular, develop in order to favor the trustworthiness of ADR technologies to develop an AI trust label. Now, WP4 is concerned with the adoption, and it will really support the strategy for SMEs to adopt ADR technologies. And this will be done in conjunction with existing initiative at all levels. You know, there are, for instance, EDIH regional initiative that will need to be maybe linked and synchronized with more national and European initiatives there. Organizing bridges between these different levels of initiatives. This also concerns the public sector with increase of trustworthy in procurement, and more generally in all member states or associated countries. WP5 will be concentrated on the standards, and will that already I told about in the previous slide, but not only monitoring existing standardization activities that are numerous, but also proposing some new regulations and new standards, and in particular to include them in the update of the SRIDA. There is work package 6 about dissemination. That's important to disseminate widely the results of Adra-e and the partnership. This includes, as I will detail a little bit more in the next slide, the web platform, and it's concerned with how to transfer the results of Adra-e to Adra, and the partnership. So what mechanisms are planned to achieve these goals? I already mentioned some of them, but here they are listed all together. There will be some events that we call convergence events, convergence between the different communities here. In work package 1, there will be the ADR conference, a yearly conference to gather together the communities, and I will also come back in the end about the first one. Work package 2 will organize a project exhibition about all existing projects that are concerned with ADR, so they can meet and present, pitch their actions and their activities. There will be in the work package 3 the ADR Awareness Day to raise the awareness as one of the main goals of Adra-e and WP3. The Convergence Summit will be organized in WP4, and it concerns maybe more decision makers. It will be like really addressing all the important stakeholders of the European industry. And all along, these first events will be yearly events, while there will be, as mentioned, some cross-disciplines workshops, more focused on some particular topics that can be build bridges between the different sub-communities. So these are part of the events. That there will be a web platform that already mentioned, and again, I will detail a little bit the link to a web platform with the AI on demand platform and the CSA AI4Europe. But on the web platform, however it is built, we'll have different cartographies about existing initiatives, about standards, the standard operatory. There will be the awareness center and the community tools that should be made available to favor the adoption of ADR technologies. Web platform is one thing. There will be, as mentioned, actionable recommendation to the update of the 3DA, and of course, all the actions about dissemination, exploitation, communication on social networks, this webinar, for instance, and the like. The expected impact of Adra-e or at all levels, societal, scientific, technological, and economic. Awareness center is mainly concerning societal impact, though it can, of course, have some technological impact as well by raising awareness in industry. All the events the convergence events listed in the previous slide will hopefully have some social and scientific impact. Recommendation of the 3DA will of course have a societal research, scientific research impact, but technology impact more importantly, as well as an online observatory of standards. We hope that the increased awareness will remove obstacles and then have high technological and economic impacts, such as the support for spreading the technologies. And finally, economic impacts are expected at the member state level as well. Now, there are many challenges facing us. Well, I mentioned the fact that the communities are not really one community at the moment, but rather several communities, a bit dispersed. And not only they are different, but they are at very different levels of maturity. Because, for instance, data and robotics has been there for quite some time. The rise of AI communities is more recent. So we need to be careful and with careful balance there. This level of different level of maturity goes with cultural difference. Excuse me. As said, for instance, the data and robotic community were more a consequence of the respective partnerships, so more some top-down approach, while the AI community, the 3 AI communities that exist at the moment are more bottom-up communities that rise from initiatives from researchers and some industries in Europe. We have, and especially in AI, a gap between industry and research, maybe because AI is moving very fast these days, maybe other more deep reasons, and we need absolutely to fill this gap and find some bridges. And finally, we need to take into account the very different geographical breadth of AI, for instance, from regional, as mentioned, EDIH, to European and worldwide initiatives like GPI. Okay, but we are not alone. There are many synergies that we want to build on. And the first and more important one, and will be the topic of next presentation, is the one with the AI on demand platform and the sister CSA AI4Europe that Barry will tell you about. But there's also, of course, we are working with the European Commission, and in particular, there are 42 newly funded projects that the kickoff will be in October, and in relation with maybe one of the events I told you about. We, of course, count on the 5 founding associations of ADRA, and representative of the existing communities. And there are other initiatives out there that will be identified in work package 2, and that will be also, we count on them also to have this unified ecosystem. Well, thank you, and Clemens.
Yeah, Marc, thank you. Thank you very much for providing the overview, almost to the second on time. Thanks a lot for that one. Yeah, one comment in terms of housekeeping, because due to time management, we will take the questions from the audience and ask them in the end during the Q&A session. So as mentioned by Marc, there is a sister or brother CSA to Adra-e, which is called AI4EU, which is like the successor of AI4Europe. And who would be better qualified to provide us an overview of AI4EU, the AI on-demand platform, than Barry O'Sullivan. So please, Barry, welcome on the stage. Yeah, it works. Great. Excellent.
Thank you very much. Let me just get my my slide here. Very good. So hopefully you can see the slides now.
Yes. Once you make it full screen, we
will do that. Yeah. So full screen mode. So hopefully that's you can see that in full screen. Great.
Excellent.
Thanks very much. Thank you very much.
The stage is yours.
Thank you, and thanks for the invitation to speak. And it was a pleasure to meet many of the Adra-e consortium members last week in Paris. I participated on behalf of AI4Europe on the first day. So the AI4Europe project is the next phase of the AI on-demand platform, and this is coordinated from University College Cork. And also in the meeting today we have Gabriel Gonzales Castane, who's my colleague, co-leading the initiative with me, and so many of you will know Gabriel, and he will obviously be participating in the questions and answers at the end. So there he is, just popping on screen. Good morning, Gabriel. So I just want to tell you very, very briefly about the project. So what is the project? So what many of you probably are aware of is that the Commission in its very strategy documents has a vision to create an AI on-demand platform, and this vision was initiated through the AI4EU project, which ended in December of last year. The next project picking up the baton on that is the AI4Europe project, and of course there'll be other projects. There's another large CSA planned for next year. Our CSA is basically focused on the research community primarily, and so you see here the project objective to support and facilitate a sustainable digital platform and experimentation environment through the creation of open research channels and mechanisms that foster the European AI research ecosystem, and so on. And already at AI4Europe.eu, a significant amount of this work has already been done, and so we encourage you to take a look at the current version of the platform that came out of the AI4EU project, and of course we've built on that somewhat. In the meantime, there are other colleagues in the meeting today. I see Martin Weiss is here, who is one of the instrumental people behind the technical development of the platform, and so there's many people here from AI4Europe that we can discuss with today. So the context is that obviously the European Commission is advancing efforts to establish an AI ecosystem of excellence, and this is both on the commercial side and also on the academic side. So there's ambition for a significant investment from the private sector and the public sector in AI over the next decade, and a key infrastructure for this is the AI on-demand platform, which is essentially a repository of expertise, of tools, of services, all supported by a set of distributed platforms, which is known as the AI on-demand platform. And these platforms must be seamlessly used as a resource for the research community. So we wanted to ensure that people can participate, they can contribute, they can reuse work of others, they can use it as a mechanism for identifying collaborations, for identifying companies to work with, for companies to identify research labs to work with, and for projects to collaborate on, and so on. And of course, the underlying principles here are focused on trustworthy artificial intelligence, which is the, I suppose, European view on how AI should be undertaken. The AI community and the AI landscape is a very complex landscape. So there are many ways of drawing this this picture. This is one that we tend to use, and so obviously the European Commission in the centre, driving a whole host of AI initiatives. A major one being the Adra Association and the Adra-e project. But of course, there's a very complex landscape in terms of the digital innovation hubs, the AI on Demand project, the upcoming digital AI on Demand project, the lighthouses, the ICT48 research networks, ELLIS, EurAI, Taylor, AI for Media, Vision, and so on. There's the IDA Doctoral Academy. There are very significant stakeholders involved in the ICT49 projects, the ICT38 projects, the European Language Grid, and many, many others. So just to give you a sense of the complex world, and of course, Marc mentioned GPI and other initiatives such as OECD, those national AI strategies. It's a very, very complex landscape, as you'd expect, and this is good. So this diversity is very, very good, and it's very, very healthy. So what will the platform do? It's going to showcase state-of-the-art science. So in the phase that we're entering into now, we're focusing very much on the AI research centers and laboratories. And we want to look at things like ensuring that the platform is well populated with assets for human-centered AI, explainable AI, AI for good, and all these fantastic things. And that as part of the publication process on the platform, we want to embed the principles of trustworthiness so that people who use the resources and build upon what's done on the platform can be sure that they are using, ethically curated and trustworthy tools, which also, of course, leads into the European Commission's objective of creating an ecosystem of trust in Europe. So there are sort of three dimensions to the objectives of the projects. There's a sort of sustainability dimension. Like obviously the platform, we are just a project working on the platform for now. There'll be other projects, and over the next decade, there needs to be a sustainability plan for the AI on Demand platform. This needs to be developed in concert with the various stakeholders and also the Commission. There are technical objectives. So these are the things that we want to do on the platform and with the platform. And of course, the principle of the platform, or the principle of the development of the platform is a distributed model that all those who wish to contribute and have the resources and capability of contributing, it's a very, very open door, and we really want to engage with you as much as possible. There's a technical governance board, which is a mechanism for facilitating those kinds of contributions. And Martin Weiss, as I said earlier, is here on the call. And of course, we have objectives around collaboration. So fostering the uptake of AI, fostering the uptake of the platform amongst the research community and industry, and so on. Of course, and a key collaborative objective is collaboration with the Adra community and the Adra-e project. So, this is, as I said, maybe this sounds like a lot of emphasis. AI4Europe is one project amongst many. So there are other stakeholders. There's the ICT49 projects like Stairway, for example. There are the ICT48 research networks, of which there are 4, with an accompanying CSA called Vision. There's a forthcoming preparatory project on the digital CSA for the AI on Demand platform that is currently under negotiation with the Commission. The process for that has been run, and so now the various agreements are being put in place. This 27 million euro digital project is going to be coming up soon. There are 40 or more, as many of you know, Horizon Europe projects that make explicit reference to the platform. And so Adra-e and AI4Europe will be meeting those in October of this year. And so there's a whole bunch of things we want to do as part of the project to technically advance the platform and also to build a community of supporters around it. But of course, it's going to outlive our project. And so this is why it's important that the platform itself becomes a community resource, and also that during the lifetime of this project, we develop a sustainability plan in collaboration with the various stakeholders. So community asset, it's not controlled by any one project or organization or group of organizations. That sustainability and governance plan will be put in place in due course. So I've given you the core objectives. You can sort of see these maybe laid out in a more attractive way, and you get to see some of the activities that we're focusing on. So the S, R, and C here on the slide represent the sustainability, the research and the community objectives. And so you get a sense of the kinds of things that we're developing and how this also relates to the various core objectives. And so you can study this at your leisure in due course. Very complex stakeholders, as I said at the very beginning. So this chart isn't intended to look like everybody's going in different directions, but that the stakeholders form a sort of a four-dimensional space. There are the academic researchers and the topics that they're often concerned about. So these are often scientific questions. The personas, so the different types of actor in the academic research environment. So everybody from PhD students to postdoctoral researchers to professors. On the industry dimensions, then obviously industry tends to focus on application domains, on particular markets, and there are different personas in that dimension. Everybody from executives to managers and engineers and so on. And we must figure out how to bring all of this together. So the various innovation hubs, the ICT 49s, who are providing services, the networks of excellence, and the various AI associations that are out there. So this all needs to be sort of brought together as a single research community, which obviously is to the various initiatives led by the Commission. And the platform here is a resource then for those to build upon and to use and to communicate and to showcase their work. I suppose this is how we view the world in terms of the evolution of the platform over the next decade. Obviously, you see, we should probably revise the slide and put the Adra and Adra-e logos into that box on the right-hand side. But there was very much there was a significant amount of work done during the AI4EU project, which sets us up well for the next phase for AI4Europe and subsequently the Digital Europe platform. And you sort of see some of the aspects that we see as features of the platform going forward. So obviously there's a work program that sort of implements all of this. I won't dwell on that, just given the time, but it's in the slides and it'll be in the video of the session. Here is the consortium of people behind the project, and so it's a great honor for us at UCC, for Gabriel, Sean Gaffigan, myself, and the team to be coordinating this project. And we hope to be working with many of you in the context of Adra-e, and we look very much forward to that. What does success look like? Well, basically, it'll look like a platform that's rich in assets, services, content, and tools. Very strong engagement with AI research stakeholders who use assets, who contribute assets, who may extend the platform in various ways. A governance model that's built on an open development and community engagement model, and a sustainability plan for the future. If you want to engage with us, then obviously you can contact us by email at contact.AI4Europe at insight-center.org. And of course, you have the slides here. You can reach out to Sean, Gabriel, or myself directly also. This is the general mailbox, and we're delighted to work with all people who are interested in the AI on Demand platform. So with that, I'll hand you back to the chair, and thank you very much for your patience. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Barry, for the nice overview. I also like the reference to the fourth dimension. This is not something you encounter very frequently, at least not in the AI sphere, rather than the quantum computing. Yeah, but from the fourth dimension to the three communities, to AI, data, and robotics, it was mentioned actually numerous times during this webinar already. ADRA, the AI, Data, and Robotics Association. So with me on the stage, I I welcome my fellow Adra-ist, Rich Walker, who is the chairman of the board at Adra, and who will provide you an overview. What is Adra, what's behind Adra, and what is the strategic goal? So Rich, without further ado, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Clemens. Let me just get my presentation up. Can everybody see that? Some of the material in here has actually already been covered by the previous speakers, which is kind of really good because it shows that there is a lot of alignment already happening with the community, and the momentum is building here. But I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the AI Data and Robotics Association, which is a membership association for organizations who want to have a stake in how AI data and robotics is developed in Europe. It's complementary to the CSAs that have been talked about before. It's complementary to organizations like BDVA, EuRobotics, CLARE, ELLIS, and EurAI, which is why those organizations have come together to put it together. So if I just step through, thank you very much for doing this. A quick overview of who we are, what we do, the governance, membership, and there's a call for action at the end. The partnership, I think, has been mentioned already, but essentially this is one of the classic European organizational events where the Commission says we need to be in partnership with the private sector in order to deliver the work program, to deliver the investment in this sector that's needed. And so the Adra Association was set up to be the private side of the co-program partnership. And there's an MOU between Adra and the European Commission to help steer this huge amount of public investment from the European Commission and a huge amount of private investment expected from industry across Europe to really make AI data and robotics happen. A joint initiative, these 5 organizations have come together. Each of these represents a strong and significant community, 3 across AI, 1 across data, and 1 across robotics. Some of these communities have a long and deep history of their own, as organizations of their own. Others are kind of newer and more flexible and fluid, but we think we bring together a really strong team to really make this initiative happen. Objectives: sovereignty over AI data and robotics, leadership in AI data and robotics, and a strong global competitive position. This has already been talked about because essentially Adra-e shares these objectives. I always like to make the point here that everybody remembers the day GDPR kicked in, because suddenly the amount of spam in your inbox dropped by 99%. And a whole load of businesses whose business was spamming people for money just stopped. They went out of business. GDPR was a European initiative that was transformative to the way we see privacy in computing. And what we're hoping is that the AI and data and robotics initiatives will bring a similar European leadership to that area and really set a set of precedents, standards, policies that will make AI data and robotics fulfill not just its technological potential, but do that in a way that fits with European values. And that's really important for us. So our approach, I think, again, a lot of this you'll already have seen in the previous slides: build a community, build a dialogue, make sure that industry and research are represented equally, make sure the 3 communities are represented equally, build an ecosystem, and particularly reach out to organizations like regional ecosystems, SMEs, startups, and scale-ups. Governance, so we have a General Assembly composed of the members with voting rights and without voting rights, and the voting rights available members elect a board of directors. The board of directors is delicately balanced: 1/3 from AI, 1/3 from data, 1/3 from robotics, half from industry and half from research. And that gives us the clarity that we are representing each of the communities in a balanced way. And then we have a president and a secretary general and an office structure. So the current board of directors, here we are. President is Marina Bill from ABB, who very ably sets a direction and kind of leads us as the public figure. And then the Adra office has been supported very well by BDVA, Inria, Paris and Clare, and EuRobotics and the University of Twente. And all of these directors are available and open for discussion about Adra and how we do it and what we do if you want to find out more. So the way we work on things that need doing within Adra, how do we get things done? Well, we set up public topic groups, which may cover a single domain, which is something that is covered by one of the existing founding organizations. So for example, there might be a topic group around mechatronics. which would then be covered by EuRobotics because that's an existing topic group in EuRobotics. But then there are also cross-cutting topic groups. Standardization is a classic one of these, European policy is another, and then this is composed by multiple associations, multiple organizations, and multiple people. And then within the board, we also have task forces that make things happen and do things. And the Adra-e proposal was, for example, developed with a task force from the board of directors. So these mechanisms are fairly standard and fairly usual. And if you've been a member of BDVA or EuRobotics, you'll have seen these before. The key difference is that we are not trying to replace a topic group that already exists in a working group that already exists somewhere else. We're simply trying to make sure that that is framed and has the correct access to the PPP and to the European mechanisms necessary. Yeah, doesn't want to change slide. Ah, here we go. So we set up the association in 2021, elected president, signed an MOU, have done some information days, got moving, had a first general assembly. We opened up for membership at the end of the year. We've helped the Commission with the new work program 23-24. We've had a number of meetings with NCPs. Apologies, I shouldn't say today, it's the wrong slide, slide needs editing. We've been working, something that hasn't happened in previous work programs is a more direct link between the member states and the work program development. So traditionally what happens is the work program is presented to the member states at a program committee meeting. What we've been doing is engaging the national contact points earlier in that cycle so we can get a better linkage, cross-linkage and deeper linkages into regional interests and regional programs. And that's the kind of activity that we think is important to build that wider community. And we've just had a general assembly and now we're taking this forward. And again, we're recruiting for members to make some of these things that we're trying to get done happen. That's the same slide. So if you join as a member, many of you will already know this, you have the access to stakeholder network, you get to work on the future research programs, help us develop it. We've talked already about the SREDA. Adra-e will be doing a lot of work to reach out to the wider community, but essentially the final definition of the SREDA will happen inside the membership. We'll be putting together policy documents, position papers, consultations, and so on, and that will be something you can shape there. And of course, it provides European level visibility. And as if you're a voting member, you can of course propose candidates for the board and vote on those and lead topic groups and task forces. So we have members with and without voting rights from industry, from research, and strategic members, and then associate members are organizations who want to participate but don't need a governance finger in the pie, as it were. So with trade unions, NGOs, regional clusters, possibly organizations like national funding bodies might join in that category. Membership fees, very typical for an association like this. Drop us a line if this is a problem, and we'll talk about that. The application process is pretty simple. Go to the Adra Association webpage, look for the membership tab, download the forms, send it back, and the board will review that and we'll get it sorted. So that's really all I wanted to say today. Please do get in touch if you have any questions. We're obviously available later on in the Q&A in the chat. And several of us here are also Adra directors and so can of course help with any questions. Thank you very much.
Yes, thanks a lot, Rich. This must have been the TLDR version. It was very quick, very quick run through. But as you mentioned, Adra was picked up many times before. This actually brings me to the let's say last standard presentation agenda point of today, because you heard about the Adra-e CSA, you heard about AI4Europe, and you heard about the PPP, the private part, Adra itself. So how is all of this connected, and who would be better, let's say, suited to give an introduction on this interaction than representatives from the European Commission itself? So with me on the stage, I welcome Sam Gulec and David Zunel Ballester from the EC Project Office. So, and I can see the screen share is already working. Perfect. Brief mic check. Can you?
But I will maybe first present myself and David before sharing the screen.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, you can hear me?
Yeah,
okay.
Loud and clear.
Good morning, I'm Sam Gulec. I'm the project. I'm the project officer for Adra-e. I have this honor to be the project officer for Adra-e, and I'm happy. that is also working on the AI4Europe. Do you hear me well? I'm not sure you hear me well.
There was a brief hiccup, but now it works.
Okay. And maybe I will give the floor to David for a quick introduction as well. David.
Thank you very much, and Clemens. Good morning, everyone. My name is David Zunel, and I work in the European Commission in the Unit A1 with CHEM in robotics and artificial intelligence excellence. And I'm responsible since since they kick off the project. I'm responsible for the as a project officer for AI4Europe.
Okay, I will now share the screen to make the presentation. Please tell me if you see it.
It's starting. Yep, it works. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yep, works like a charm.
So super. So I'm working in the unit. Our head of unit is Cécile, and basically this is the presentation she gave at the kickoff meeting, and the message is the same. So we'll use the same presentation. We're working in the unit robotics and artificial intelligence innovation and excellence. So the mission of our unit is to develop the ecosystem of excellence in AI. So from excellence, from research to adoption. So we are going from this early stage of research to adoption. So we are following projects from various stages of development. Since a couple of years now, we are not only working on AI, but we're also working on AI data and robotics. So the disciplines have been merged also in our units as for the PPP. And we're working on a various and rich landscape that concentrate AI data and robotics. This is a more detailed view of the landscape in AI data and robotics. You see that we have the PPP and Adra at the top, which is one of the main also actor of the ecosystem. We also have the network of excellence centers that are very much important also for creating the AI lighthouse in the ecosystem. We have the funded project under Horizon 2020, and also now the 42 new projects funded under Horizon Europe. We have, as you have seen also the presentation of Barry, the AI on Demand platform, which is an initiative that is supported by many projects, and currently, and the main actor is the AI4Europe project. We just finished the evaluation of the current testing experimentation facilities, which is the link between projects and to test them before putting them into, let's say, making them available to the market to validate the search in the field of AI. We have the digital innovation hubs and the AD that are part of the ecosystem. So this is the full landscape of the excellence ecosystem that we have. And we see a particular role in the two CSAs, Adra-e and AI4Europe. Those are two very important projects for the EC, because we're expecting from this project to make the link between the projects, the new projects, to link them to ensure that they can benefit from synergies, and also to allow them to be, let's say, more visible in the field of, in the ecosystem of excellence. So as you can see in this slide, visibility is one of the main points of our main expectation from this project. We want these projects, Adra-e and AI4Europe, this is the same, to be themselves very much visible. We want the other projects to know what they can bring to them, how they can collaborate with these two CSA. And we're also expecting from these two projects to facilitate, to play the role of a facilitator, to make the projects themselves visible the other projects. And the collaboration with AI4Europe is crucial. We want these two CSA, you call them sister or brother CSA, we want them to collaborate very much in order to achieve these high-level objectives. We will have the first showcase, will be the launch event in October, as already mentioned. We want this launch event to be coordinated jointly by Adra-e and AI4Europe. This would be the occasion for these two CSA to present what they're doing and to present to the other project how they could help them, and also for the project themselves to make a quick presentation of the individual projects, so that they can also link with other projects. We appreciate, we could see in the grant agreements that Adra-e has also additional communication initiatives, which are very much convergent with what we're expecting, as described in the call. Those were, for instance, the ADR Convergence Summits and the ADR conferences, as also some other workshops that are very much also important to make ensure visibility. We're also expecting Adra-e to contribute very much for the update of the SRIDA. So the PPP will be the ultimate responsible. We're expecting Adra-e to collect valuable information and to transmit to the PPP this valuable inputs for the update of the SRIDA that needs to be updated. And we are expecting this SRIDA to serve for the elaboration of the next work program 25-26. And we want also Adra-e to in the role of Adra-e that the inputs that are already available in other projects, as for instance the Network of Excellence Centers, are used for the elaboration of this of the updated SRIDA. Other high-level tasks where we expect both CSA to play a role is to work in the ADR landscape. We want the landscape to benefit the entire community, so it should be visible, elaborated, and visible. And this would help also cross-fertilization synergies if we know what's happening in Europe. We want also other available resources and results that are already present to be shared with other projects, for instance, the one coming from the Network of Excellence Centers. And we, again, the third point, we are expecting Adra-e and AI4Europe to work closely to make all of this visible and to benefit to all the projects that we have in the field. We also we are very much sensitive in the EC currently on also on the services and tools that are provided by the individual projects. We want the two CSA to rationalize and to in order not to avoid duplication and to have a clear positioning of the different tools and services. We do not want tools that are serving the same purpose. We want a clear landscape of what is existing and also an overlap. And we see the two CSA to play a role in that, in having this view and ensuring that other projects knows how they could position in order not to duplicate the work. And this would allow the development of synergies and collaboration between all the projects. And at the end, it will reinforce the entire community. Other important tasks that are assigned to Adra-e is the support to standardization. And I can say today that this already started, even a little bit before the kickoff of the Adra-e project. We had planned some actions in that. So this is an important actions from Adra-e. And we want Adra-e to support the EC for the regulatory framework. So standardization is also important for that. AI has been selected as a use case by Sense and Elec, and we're expecting Adra-e to support Sense and Elec in the elaboration of the ecosystem of trust, or in the development of the ecosystem of trust. And as I said, these meetings between Adra-e and Sense and Elec plus the EC have already started in July, and we are still we are continuing on that. So the dynamic is already here present, and we are expecting this to continue in the future. So basically, that's all from the EC. These were the messages concerning the two CSA, the collaboration between the two CSA, and the particular role of Adra-e in the ecosystem of excellence. And also the first showcase, as I said in the presentation, of this strong collaboration between the CSA will be the launch event that is will be organized in October. The date is still not fixed, but this needs to be defined. It will also it will be a showcase showing how the two CSA could cooperate and collaborate together, but also it will also show that make the link between these two CSA with the individual other 40 projects. And we are expecting the projects to link easily together and to create really this this ecosystem and the feeling of being part of the same ecosystem. And the two CSA plays a very important role in that. I think that's all from us at this stage, and we are happy to answer questions at the Q&A session that will starts very soon. So
yeah,
thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for providing this very concise overview. And you're right, it starts not soon, but immediately now. So please stay with me on the stage. Actually, this goes to all of the speakers of today. We received a couple of questions, so let me go through them. Yeah, the first question we received is actually talking about the composition. It's about the A, D, and R. It's saying the three communities today are distinct for genuine historical and scientific reasons. How can Europe help overcome these cultural barriers? So, yeah, I think I would first address this question directly to Rich Walker from Adra, because on the one hand side, he's a representative from EuRobotics. On the other hand, he's already working in Adra for 18 months. Actually, we're working there together for 18 months already. So tell me a little bit about your experience in terms of cultural differences and how Adra is evening them out. You're muted.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yes, so I was going to say, cultural differences are one of the things that makes life interesting. Different organizations and different people work in different ways, and that enables them to do different things and to work with different groups of people. And so I think it's important that we not try and level out the cultural differences between the organizations, but rather build a system, a process that takes advantage of the differences. So a well-defined, strong membership organization of companies and research institutes and universities like Adra or BDVA is very different from a loose affiliation of AI researchers, and they will have different strengths and different weaknesses and different capabilities. So what we do in Adra is essentially to try and allow each of those to have its advantages and to work with them and to build an entity, a strong entity on top of that.
Thank you. Yeah, then I would also directly hand over this question to Marc, like let's say from the Adra-e, from the CSA side. How do you experience this? We also had a very large kickoff event last week at Inria, where you had stakeholders from the 3 different constituencies on board.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So of course I agree with what Rich just said. We all know diversity can be a source of advances and progress, but also it can be a difficulty. I think one of the ways to move forward will be in these community workshops we intend to organize in Adra-e. I mean, that is working together on some dedicated task with a dedicated goal can be and surely will be a way to really, let's say, benefit from these differences and join forces. Because if we can find, let's say, goals that motivate at least two or even better, the three communities, then we can really start to work together. And the joint topic groups that Rich mentioned can also be a way toward this. Of course, the single topic will remain in their respective associations, but the joint topic groups will really help on this. And by some synergy between these joint topic groups and maybe some workshops we intend to organize, I hope we can reach gradually close the gap between the communities.
Yeah, maybe let's say I would directly address this then to the other CSA, because some participants might wonder that you have Adra, 3 constituencies, have Adra-e, 3 constituencies, but you don't have ADR4EU, but you have AI4EU. So Barry, what is your take regarding the synergies between the 3 constituencies and especially your CSA?
Yeah, well, I guess the reason that we're the AI on demand platform is that this is the Commission's strategy and the Commission's vision for what the platform is to be. But of course, the House is intended to be a broad one. So I guess people who are working in the other 2 communities, who are working on things like intelligent robotics, or people who are interested in making data sets available for subsequent, analysis with AI tools, all of those assets would be very, very welcome. We don't purport to be and don't claim to be a platform for example, the robotics community. The robotics community already has platforms, and so we want to link to those, of course. But we're very focused on AI and intelligent systems, I suppose. I see that Jem has his hand up there, so he might want to come in.
Yes, I would like to say that I take the example of robotics, the EU-funded projects that we have funded over the years are all smart robots. So, okay, you may ask what is a smart robot, but they are robotics that are using AI systems. This is why we see also the robotics part integrated in this landscape. It is ADR, and the robotics that we are funding, at least in my unit, are a smart robot. So this is why for us there is no split. It's the AI on demand platform, and all parts, AI data and robotics should be linked to this AI on demand platform. There is for us, there is no barrier, and for the robotics community to be integrated or to be linked to the AI on demand platform.
Yeah, I think linked is a very important word here, because the community is working together or being present in a construct like Adra doesn't mean that they 100% merge, because you will still have, let's say, mechanics which are just not part of the big data discussion and so on. And I think this is also what Rich visualized with the joint working groups and single topic working groups. Great. So let me pick up the next question. It says, one of the biggest challenges that Europe needs to face is the lack of trust in new technologies, which raise hope and expectations, but sometimes unrealistic fears and often exaggerations. How can we ensure that the creation of trustworthy, safe and robust AI data and robotics compatible with EU values and regulations, let's say, can counter that trend somehow? That was a very long question. So who would like to go first? Rich, please. And you're muted again.
Every time. So
staying on brand.
Yes, absolutely. Very important question. If we don't get this right, what will happen is similar to what happened with genetic modification of crops. Essentially, the benefits and disadvantages, the risks and rewards of GMO were never properly discussed, and the views of the communities involved were never properly taken into account and worked with. And as a result, we don't have GMO crops. And that doesn't necessarily mean we should, but it means that the debate did not happen from the right starting point. If we get the debate around AI wrong, then that will happen again, and we will see a backlash and a reaction to it, and that will be a great loss, in my view, because that means we will not be able to take advantage of the immense possibilities here. But we know that technology is necessary for us to continue to advance Europe. There's a great story of the German trade union IG Metall, which essentially says, as a trade union, it wouldn't exist without robotics, because you couldn't afford to pay a steel worker in Germany unless you had 5 robots working for every one of those steel workers. So the technology allows us to build the society we want. We have to engage with society to ensure that we build it right, and we take on board people's views and values. And then we have to also engage with policymakers to make sure that they are able to understand what's happening and what's possible, and absolutely to make sure that the media view of what is AI, what is robotics, what is data, is not the only view at the table. And there's a corrective to that, which is to say, yes, that could be, but actually it looks like this. This is what a robot really is. This is what AI really does.
Yeah, thank you very much. I liked your GMO example a lot, because we can also see this playing out live in the last few months with nuclear power, for example, where the discussion was very emotionally driven, but now with CO2 and energy independence, you actually have very transparent criteria to evaluate it.
If I can just jump in for a moment. So it's, we're in July of 2022. In June of 2018, I had the great honor of becoming the vice chair of the European Commission's high-level expert group on AI 4 years ago. And that group was focused on looking at the ethics and trustworthiness of artificial intelligence, following a very fine position paper from the Commission on its view of how AI should be. So I think Europe should be very glad that over not just that initiative, but many initiatives like that have and debates have been taking place in Europe for many, many years. And I think one of the things that we're great leaders in are in ethical approaches to technology. You look at the General Data Protection Regulation and so on. So, Europe has been a leader in this respect, and I think this is something that we can build upon. What we need to be careful of is not falling into the trap of being over pessimistic or being overly negative about the technology. So we don't want to become world leaders in a sort of a negative narrative around AI and robotics and the use of data, but rather that there is a way of dealing with using these technologies in a trustworthy and ethical way. And I think Europe is basically the place to do that. So I think we have a lot to be proud of. Thanks.
Okay, yeah, please, Marc.
Yes, well, following Barry, yes, we should not become the have a pessimistic discourse. However, we should also not deny the risks of AI and the bad use of AI, not AI by itself, but the bad use of AI. I mean, well, there are many ways to this. One is, of course, to raise awareness of what AI can do and cannot do, and how you can prevent AI from doing bad things. This starts very, very young. I mean, we start with education and of children and students. So that's the awareness part. But on the other hand, there should be also the regulation part. We all remember the Einstein about nuclear weapons in the 50s, and probably we should have something similar for artificial intelligence and bad usage of artificial intelligence. Especially now we see the first examples of autonomous AI-driven weapons in Ukraine, for instance. So there's both sides are important, awareness and the regulation. And about regulation, Europe has shown with GDPR that it can lead the way And so there's something to be done also on the AI and the AGI side, for instance, as I've seen a question in the chat about the AGI.
Yeah, and indeed, of course, the AI Act will be coming forward pretty soon, I guess. So I think there is great awareness of these things, and Mark is absolutely right. We need to do everything we can on the education side, and I think I suppose one thing we do need to think about at an EU level, and I guess obviously we have some Commission colleagues here, is obviously it's very important to be supporting the research and innovation community through initiatives that support research and innovation. But we also need to support the education around AI, and things that we can do there together are very, very important for all the reasons that Mark has outlined. Thank you.
Yes, expectation management is surely a very big point, and this is also where I see a crucial difference between the GDPR and the AI Act, because with the GDPR came at the time when all of us were using the internet for decades already. So it basically came after the fact, whereas with the AI regulation, with the AI Act, which is supposed to pass this September in the EU Parliament, are you creating a regulatory framework for a technology which by most people is still not consciously used? So it's basically, it's more forward-looking regulation. Yeah, David is raising his hand, so perhaps you have some comments to add.
Yeah, thanks, Clemens. Well, it's difficult to say if we ever had coined the term AI in the 50s. We never know if this fact just conditioned the development of the technology during the next half century or even more. So we don't know if the reaction of our society would have been the same with this term coined so long away. But the reality is that around AI there are some risks, and we know there are some risks, and we do know also that one of the things that prevent from using new technologies is the fear of society into adopting them. So the good thing is that we are, as you mentioned, we are in a very early stage of actual development of AI or conscious development or conscious usage of development in the society, and we are in a privileged position in order to start creating the foundations that allow this technology to just become mass adoption, which is what we want, because we think, and I presume we all agree, that we are going to have a lot of AI in the future embedded in every process in our lives. So that's I think we all agree. One thing also that I would like, well, just to finish this part of the argument, is that we are working on that. The European Commission is working on that. All the activities around the AI Act that is going to somehow to be released, I hope soon. And we are completely decided into this direction because we think it's the right way to go. It's just to lay the foundation so technology and technologies can work into this direction with a good base. The other thing that I want also to highlight is what Barry already mentioned, is about education. It's true that we have been working with technology for some I would say that some significant amount of time, but it's also true that when you come to the terms of AI, this is not really a general domain that is contained in our education plans today, and it's something that we should try to change, because especially when you go to the technical domains and you see people just starting to work with technology and with ICT and with programming, even you don't see people that much aware of what AI can do for them, and that's something that we need to fundamentally change in the technical careers, not only in the ones related to the computer science or to the electrical engineer, but also in all other domains that can be, or I would say differently, that can really profit from AI in their own domains. And that's something that we had to work on from the European Commission, but also from the community as well.
Yeah, if I might just compliment what David has said, just in terms of the newness of AI. AI is not new. Right? So the Dartmouth proposal was written in 1955, and in the Dartmouth proposal from Minsky and others, was automated reasoning, natural language processing, neural networks, complexity, machine learning, abstraction, and creativity. And I think in 2 weeks' time, we will have the ICHCAI conference in Vienna, And the program is pretty much going to be that same program. You know, these are the topics. We're still talking about the same things. And you know, the interesting thing about AI is that it's a perfect example of a sort of a combination of Amara's law and déjà vu. And so Amara's law says that we overestimate the impact of a technology in the short term and underestimate its impact in the long term. And I mean, and so that's Amara's law. And I think that there's a strong aspect of déjà vu in the sense that through the many AI winters and summers, we've sort of relearned all of that again. We've sort of overestimated. Amara's law repeatedly applies in AI, but we use AI every day, and we have been using AI every day for a very, very long time. And so, you know, it's something that we shouldn't fool ourselves into thinking that we're dealing with a new technology. Of course, the pervasiveness of AI is new, is deep, and one of the reasons for that is because of the data dimension, because of the amount of data that we get, the amount of data that we process, the amount of data that we leave behind. And I think it's that combination of data and robotics, which is absolutely new in this iteration that we didn't have in previous iterations. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, then let me hand over the word to Viviane.
Yeah, thank you, Clemens. I think that the problem with trust and creating the trustworthy environment is that usually when there is no trust, it's because there are a lot of fears. Fear can be rational, but it can also be from lack of knowledge. So what we have to do is actually try to include all the society and all the relevant stakeholders, which is also the public and member states, high-level member states, in order to really explain to them what AI, data, and robotics can do and what maybe it shouldn't do. And once we have the same level of understanding, I think we can really create a debate and really understand each other. And to this end, I think that, like Marc said, we have different events. And during these events, I think we can really engage with the public and explain to them how we work and what we can do for them, and also listen to their fear and really create this environment of trust. So really, I think that one of the answers is these events to really understand each other.
Yes, thank you very much for pointing this out. This was also, let's say, repeatedly stressed when Marc gave the overview of the entire Adra-e construct and the work packages. Dissemination is key in an initiative like this. You cannot just expect it to stay within the R&D community and the public will pick it up. You basically have to bring it to the public and explain it in understandable terms. Yeah, looking at the Q&A, we received one question which I can conveniently address to most of you. It's from Josip Kustic. How can one technology company, which core competency is implementation of analytics and AI solutions, join these initiatives? So with these initiatives, I basically can take them one by one. So yeah, ladies first, how can an AI implementation company join Adra-e?
Well, I think they can directly contact, well, me or Marc, and then we can, well, work together and see how. But the best way is to actually contact us. So Marc or me.
Excellent. Then if we started with one CSA, let's continue with the next one. Barry, so how to engage with AI4EU?
Well, I'm very conscious that Gabriel hasn't spoken yet, so I'll hand that over to Gabriel.
Thanks, Marc. So I guess that there are so the platform is the AI on demand platform is a platform that is open for the community, so everybody can go there, can use the different tools and can contribute. However, there are different services that are accessible, so all of them have a contact point, and they can go there and they can dive a bit in the different services and join the different working groups. Another thing that we are working in is we are working in a section in the main portal just for the people to give more visibility to the different working groups on the different activities, so they can easily join and they can get more information about the meetings, how everything is moving, just also for transparency on everything that we are doing. So that will be there in the next release, I guess.
Thank you. And last but not least, Rich, what is the easiest way for an AI implementation company to join Adra?
So go to our website, go to the membership page, download the form, fill it in, send it back. Decide what kind of member you want to be, whether you want to be a full participant with voting rights, so special categories for startups and SMEs in there, or whether an associate membership status would suit you. Also have a look as we start to unfold the topic groups and see which ones of those are pertinent to your interests, and get in touch with the people that are doing that. They will all be up on the website. And lastly, I would say it's worth remembering that there are a lot of projects running in these areas with cascade funding. So particularly for the smaller SMEs, cascade funding is a very good way to get engaged with larger initiatives. I believe that there's a web page listing all of these on the Commission site, but essentially there are lots of projects that have small funding blocks available for partners to join later on and do specific, interesting pieces of work. And that may be a very good route on ramp for engaging with this kind of thing.
Thank you very much. Maybe just one tiny follow-up. If someone is filling out the form and declaring which type of membership they intend to achieve, how long does it take until someone becomes really a Adra member and can engage in the working groups? Is this weeks or months, or are kids born in between?
We should get back to you very quickly with a kind of like, we've had a look, the form seems fine. There's then a process where the next board meeting or one after that will review outstanding memberships and give a temporary approval. There is a formal approval at a General Assembly, which we try and have frequently enough to keep the membership up to date. But essentially, if you're on the membership track, then we're very, very happy to have you participate. If you're not on the membership track, we're very happy to have you participate in topic groups, because topic groups are open. What you can't do is set up and lead a topic group without being a member.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So next question. This conveniently is also spelling out who the question is addressed to. So I got a question from the audience addressed to Marc and Rich. It says, you mentioned it is essential to establish a dialogue and convergence between the current ADR communities, partially represented by the founding organizations of Adra. Do you expect Adra will eventually subsume its founding organizations? Is this something we should strive for? ? So yeah, let's start with Marc on that question.
Yes, okay. Well, of course, we don't expect Adra will subsume, but we expect there will be some synergy between Adra and the funding organization, though this should be Rich to answering this question. No, I mean, all these funding associations have their respective strengths and working groups and topic groups and whatever, and they should, of course, continue. And there's no question. No, Adra, I think Adra will want to do something that they already done. Rich mentioned it very clearly, but we expect that to have a joint topic group, for instance, in Adra, or joint initiatives with workshops, as I already mentioned several times, in Adra-e. We expect people to gather together at the convergence events and with their own identity, their own culture, and gradually, that relates to the very first question that was asked, and gradually everybody making step together. But we expect people nevertheless to join Adra. This is one of the tasks of Adra-e, because Adra is the place where you must be if you want to move forward.
Thank you. Do you have something to add on this one, Rich?
Maybe a couple of points. One is that constitutionally, Adra is set up to be a separate entity to the founding organizations and respect their integrity. Adra is the contractual partner of the PPP, which gives it a particular purpose and operational function that the founding organizations don't have. And equally, as Marc has said, those founding organizations have their own nature and structure that Adra could not replace. So I think that there is plenty of work for both. There is plenty of opportunity for both there.
Excellent, thank you. With regard to the timing, and since we have still lots of questions, let me directly pick up the next one. This is directed at the two colleagues from AI4Europe, to Barry and Gabriel. It says, as you mentioned, the AI on-demand platform is meant to be sustainable over time. There's a work package dedicated to developing a sustainability plan. Do you already have some ideas on the governance of the platform and financing? For example, is it meant to be for profit, non-profit, foundation, or which type of construct do you have in mind?
Well, I guess these are the questions that the work package is intended to answer, of course. So but I suppose the short answer to this at the moment, and Gabriel will have something to say here too. The platform, as I said in my talk, is a community platform. So the governance of the platform will need to reflect that. And I suppose my personal view is that we expect it to be, it's sustainable in the sense that it's financially sustainable, it's sustainable in terms of content, sustainable in terms of community, and it needs to have a financial model that reflects that. I don't think it's intended to be profit making. So I'm not sure if that really answers, hopefully that answers the question, but this is exactly the work we have to do. Right? So Gabriel, did you want to make any remark on that?
Yeah, so we will be working on that. That's, as Barry mentioned, there is also another project funded that is Prepay, that they also have tasks. Prepay is in Digital Europe and is the other part of the platform to see somehow that is part of the AI on-demand platform that is addressing a set of different stakeholders and is the preparatory action to the 27 million euros that Barry mentioned before. And in that preparatory action, there is also a few tasks that are meant to be exploring the different options and what is the most suitable option for this initiative, like the AI on-demand platform. So we will be working on that during the next few months to try to find the best approach.
Yeah, if I just might make a general remark about both of these questions, just from my personal experience of bringing together building large research centers. Our current center is a very large center. We have about 500 people nationally, and we have to bring what were essentially very different communities into the same entity. The thing that I learned about that, and this also factors into sustainability of financing, is that we have a unique opportunity as two CSAs and as two sort of initiatives, platform and Adra, to make it work. And if it doesn't work, and if it doesn't succeed, we will be remembered for that. Failure is a lonely place. So what's really important is that we figure out, that we all figure out what success means in our respective organizations and make sure that we achieve that. Because I don't think this opportunity will come back our way again. And it really behoves us to make sure that that all of these initiatives really succeed, because the cost of them not succeeding is that Europe gets left behind in some way. And I think that would be unconscionable. Yes.
Great. So thank you very much. Good. Then let's pick up the next question. That's a good one. That's from the audience. It's from Fatimi. He's asking, what do you think about the role of open data and public sector information in strengthening the application of AI in private and public sector? Do you think the current maturity and standards can meet the AI application needs? So who wants to go first?
I can comment if you wish, but I've just spoken, so I'm happy to go last. Okay. Well, I think there's public sector data is a great opportunity for strengthening the application of AI for all sorts of reasons. I mentioned the high-level expert group earlier, and in the second deliverable of the high-level expert group, which was a set of policy and investment recommendations, we talked actually about the use of public procurement and public data as a way of really helping to drive the uptake and innovation in AI. So, for example, when there are public sector projects that need to be undertaken, there's a great opportunity for incentivizing or for preferring innovative solutions that, for example, use AI. And so not only do you get a double impact from the use of public sector data, but you also get a double impact in terms of funding from a public sector procurement mechanism. And obviously public procurement processes are often quite well funded. So I think there's a great opportunity there. I'm not a standards person, so maybe somebody else on the panel knows more about standards than I do. But I think open data and public data is really, really important. And we see great progress there in a variety of different sectors, in health, in public services, and so on. And you look at countries like Estonia, for example, and how advanced they are in the use of data and AI technologies. I think there's really, really great opportunities, not only for the use of the data in developing the technology, but also in the use of public procurement mechanism and public policy to incentivize the uptake of AI, to prefer the uptake of AI. And in that second deliverable I mentioned, the policy and investment recommendations, we could actually highlight those things in one particular section. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody from the panelists would like to elaborate a little bit on the topic of standards and regulations? Yeah, I know it's not the most popular topic. Yeah, maybe one comment to add from my side. Barry already mentioned a couple of regions and, let's say, types of data where sharing is bringing lots of benefits. One area where we can also see this at the moment is with open government data in terms of geo data. So the city of Vienna, for example, has this, or the city of Berlin, where they provide portions of their mobile mapping campaigns for startups and research institutions which can work on them. So, for example, how healthy is the greenery and parks, or you can make a shadow simulation, for example. This is also something that is getting a strong uptick at the moment, especially as the public side is taking care that the data is scrubbed of all personal information upfront. So it's very safe for companies to work with it.
Yes, maybe about open data. Yes, I agree fully with what Barry said. Of course, open data is crucial. There are, of course, constraints related to privacy that prevent some data to be really open data. I think it is important, while stressing the importance of having such data available, that it can boost research in things like federated learning or anonymization of data or things like that, so that some data which is not really public could be nevertheless helpful to research and deployment. And another sector I would like to mention about open data is the automobile sector, automotive sector. All the car builder, they run miles and thousands and millions of miles with their cars or in simulation, but they keep their results very preciously for themselves. While maybe if they put them in common with some guarantee that still need to be worked on by some research, then they would all take a lot of benefit from that, and because they need to run in very many different scenarios and they cannot cover all of them. So this is typically where we should encourage maybe not open data but shared data somehow, by developing technologies to share them while preserving the ownership and privacy.
Thank you very much. We still have a couple of questions more. This is a nice one. Let me take that one first. It's from Martin Stube, and he's saying, "Hey, I'm a student at the University of Lübeck. Thanks for this webinar. Is AGI one of your goals, and can a bachelor computer science student participate by helping you in programming and researching?" So let me answer the first part directly. No, AGI is not the goal of the Adra-e, because it's for 3 years, not for 300 years. But nevertheless, it's always possible to participate. And yeah, again, I would address this to Marc, how to interact with Adra-e coming from a student side.
Yeah, it's a good question. Let me first come back on the first part of the question. Yes, I agree. For 3 years, it's not a goal, and it probably shouldn't be a goal at all. We are very far from it anyway. We only have, let's say, weak artificial intelligence dedicated to some specific tasks. And we should consider AGI maybe something to be addressed by possible regulation and law, like again the nuclear bomb with respect to nuclear industry. But okay, that's it requires a lot of work by defining what we intend by AGI and the like, and it's not the place to discuss this. Now, how can students interact? That's a very good question, because I don't think we have really considered this. There are many ways, of course. You can stay tuned on the different channels and participate to the workshops, or you can, as Viviane said, send us more, let's say, personal emails saying that you're really interested, and I'm sure we can find things to do and to help Adra-e to disseminate, to encourage gathering together of the communities. Depends also of what you can, what your expertise is.
Thank you very much. Good, then scrolling through the questions, I think there's only one open question left. It says Europe is good at setting ethical standards, for example, like the GDPR. How to ensure EU industry takes advantage of this and builds the technology implementing these ethical standards? Yeah, Rich, please.
So I think, as has been alluded to before, there's a fantastic argument for using procurement tools well here. If there are standards set across Europe, then it becomes easy for national bodies, governments, local, regional, other large organizations to write those standards into their procurement processes and say, if we are procuring an X, it must comply with the following rules and certifications. Equally, as we saw with things like the Machineries Directive, once the Machineries Directive came in and compliance was required, the enforcement of that became essentially a matter for organizations like trading standards and consumer rights policing in the countries. So I think the mechanisms are already there to ensure that companies pick up and work with and use standards. We can drive them and seed them by smart procurement in advance and upfront. And that's always been a very good mechanism to get people to adopt standards. And I think over to Barry, who probably knows more on this than has probably forgotten more than I know on this subject.
Thanks, Rich. I guess it's interesting to, the labels trustworthy AI and ethical AI. I think there's just, AI that is built properly and done properly. I think one of the interesting things is that these days people are very, very, and by people I mean consumers, I mean the ordinary person on the street, they're aware of the potential risks of these technologies, and they demand that that systems are built in an ethical and trustworthy way. You see that, for example, social media companies, that people are very sensitive to privacy issues now that they were not previously. So the good news is that I think that ethical AI and trustworthy AI is the only kind of AI that will be tolerated by the marketplace, and this is a good thing, because I think also we have a culture in Europe of considering these types of issues sort of fundamentally as part of our European DNA. I guess the big challenge for companies, of course, is access to talent and making sure that there are sufficient expertise and they can find the right people to come in and build the smart robotics and the data-rich applications and the AI system. So I think this becomes more of a very practical issue of skill availability. But I think in terms of the concept of one AI versus the other, there is no one AI versus the other anymore. There's only good AI that is well developed and well implemented, and that is trustworthy AI. There is nothing else, and I think our markets will thank us for that in the longer term. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much for this comment. I like this a lot. There is no ethical AI anymore because all AI is ethical. It's like the mobile internet. It vanished. It just became the internet. So from the audience side, I think we are pretty much through. There's just one final question. I would, since we have so many big stakeholders here, one final question. In your opinion, what are the main benefits Adra, Adra-e, and AI4Europe and the partnership can bring to the competitiveness of the industry, and which opportunities will it create for companies? So yeah, Rich, please.
So I think one very important and often underappreciated benefit of these kind of associations is the ability to do pre-competitive collaboration. Competition should take place in the market. It should be appropriate. It should not be it should not be in any way underhand. There shouldn't be collusion within the market. But if you want to build strong systems, strong platforms, ecosystems, value chains, then you need cooperation earlier on. You need cooperation as the technology moves from TRL3 to TRL7 to make sure it's interoperable, to make sure that multiple suppliers exist, to make sure that you build out that ecosystem. And these associations really provide a place to do that within Europe that will enable European industry to come together and say, this is how we want to work together, and these are the problems that we collectively need solving in order that we can then all go off and build our own proprietary products and systems on top of that. So I think really that's the, in my mind, that's the great commercial starting point here.
Thank you. Yeah. Next, Barry.
Yeah, thank you. So when I was president of EurAI, obviously I was involved in the early discussions around the establishment of Adra, and I thought one of the great opportunities that Adra had was sort of counteracting a characteristic of the European technology market that neither the US nor China needs to address. And that is that if you look at the biggest companies in China, you look at the biggest companies in the United States, they're technology companies. And I mean, they're technology companies as in the Adra sense of technology companies. They're data-driven companies, they're AI-driven companies, they're robotics-driven companies. That's not the case in Europe. The biggest companies in Europe are life sciences companies. And so we have a structurally different market in Europe to that in the United States and in China. And the great opportunity that Adra creates is that if you don't have the size in terms of individual organizations, you create the size by bringing people together. And I think the great opportunity that Adra has, and this was something that I saw in the very early days, is that it really fills that that sort of deficit that we need to create large masses of organizations on the private sector side, particularly in AI, in data, in robotics, so disruptive technologies. And I think this is the great opportunity. It's I am a professor, I am an academic. I think the power of Adra is not really going to be serving me as a research professor, but it's going to be serving the private sector and being competitive on that kind of scale. And so, obviously, I wish Adra and Adra-e very, very well, because I think it's an extremely important mission, and I think it's one that you're uniquely placed to address. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and maybe for the very last comment, maybe one of the EC colleagues would like to add something to this question, like how can Adra and the CSA foster and benefit companies in Europe?
I don't know if you saw my hand anyway.
And now I saw it. Sorry.
No problem, because I didn't know if Chen wanted to add something. Well, in a nutshell, what we believe is that, and this is the reason we are doing most of the things that we do in the area of AI in particular. In these last months, we have been working with several stakeholders and several of the projects that we were with, to try to collectively join in the same line and to work on the same 4 basis, is that we need to create critical mass, and we need to be sure that all resources that are scattered in Europe, which are not less than in other parts of the world, especially in terms of research, that are going to be aligning themselves into particular topics which have a special interest or strategic interest for Europe. One of the things that we repeatedly have to do in Europe is to leverage the diversity that we have, because there's something as someone already said, that China and US, they don't face these problems, but we do, and we need to leverage these, I would say, benefits and advantages that we have as we are multiple cultures and multiple people and multiple countries working on different things. That is really an advantage against the others, but we still need to leverage that and create critical mass so we can just bring the necessary size and alignment in order to make a market to start moving. And especially in technology, where critical mass really matters, that's something that, at least from the European Commission, we are convinced to do and we are trying to do. And that's something where Adra, AI4Europe and Adra-e, that's the reason, I would say, for the creation, but that's the actual point when they can just make a difference in how the AI and robotics and data market is developing in Europe.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Yeah, this now brings us to the end of today's webinar. First of all, let me thank all of you speakers and panelists for the insights. Also for taking lots of questions from the audience. And yeah, as you can see in the chat, the people also highly appreciate this type of transparent feedback. So thank you also very much from my side. And with me now on the stage, I welcome the project manager of Adra-e, Viviane Habert, again, for the wrap up and official closing of this first webinar of Adra-e.
Well, thank you, Clemens, and I'm joining you with thanking all the speakers. Thank you for being here, and also thank you to you, Clemens, for being such a good moderator and help raise the question and answer them. I would also like to thank you all the participants to this webinar. Thank you for the questions, and we hope we gave you some answers. Some interesting answers. You will be able to see this webinar online because it will be posted on the website of Adra-e. Yes, thank you, Joost. And please share it with your colleagues as well. And we will organize other webinars soon. So, well, check us out on the website, and we'll see you very soon. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much and have a nice day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.